Welcome back to Hoopla. I'm your host, Ethan Jackson. For this episode, I kind of went back and forth on what topics I wanted to talk about, just because there's so much going on in the league right now, and there's so many storylines at this point in the season. I think there's like 5-6 games left for each team heading down this final stretch. Some have a little bit more, but I mean, you've got some teams heating up, like the Mavs, the Warriors, the Lakers are all playing some good basketball. Of course, all the teams at the top of the West are still jockeying and battling for that one seed. The Celtics are obviously still dominating, but also showing some signs of vulnerability at the same time. And speaking of vulnerability, the Bucks, that they just can't seem to get their act together and show any signs of consistency. The Suns are trying to get it together last minute, procrastinating, waiting to the last minute to get the group project done. So, like I said, there's tons of things that I could have talked about in this episode, but then over the last week or so, there has been a ton of news about injuries throughout the league. The biggest injury news is that Joel Embiid was able to return to action on Tuesday. So I want to talk about what I saw from him and how I think that will affect the Sixers and what it means for the Sixers for the rest of the season, as well as the rest of the Eastern Conference. There are also some news that Kevin Huerter for the Kings will be out for the rest of the season, and Malik Monk is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, which pretty much means the rest of the season, unless they find a way to make a deep run. Then, lastly, it just got announced today that Julius Randle will miss the rest of the season for the Knicks, having to get shoulder surgery on that shoulder that's been bothering him. So, injuries could potentially be, saving some teams' season, and on the other hand, ruining some seasons for other teams. And I feel like I need to talk about them. Injuries are kind of close to home for me because I have some firsthand experience of injuries ruining a season. My senior year of high school, we had two of our starters get hurt, which kind of ruined our season. So I definitely understand that they do happen and they're a part of the game, but I still it just irks me when they do happen because it just ruins chances, it ruins storylines, and it just kind of takes some fun away from the rest of the season. So like I said earlier, there are tons of storylines going on with teams that are trying to gear up for the playoffs, and yet these are, in my opinion, these are the most important storylines. So like I said, I wish they didn't exist, but because I just want to, as a fan, I just want to see everybody healthy and see the most competitive playoffs that there can possibly be. But unfortunately, and that's not the reality, and these things sort of kind of, they always happen. But before I get started, before I dive into it, it would mean a lot if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future episodes. And without further ado, let's get straight to it. So Joel Embiid has missed the last 2 months of the season with the meniscus injury he suffered against the Warriors, where Jonathan Kuminga fell on his knee in a kind of a loose ball situation where he was already on the ground, and I'm sure most of you saw the play. I remember watching that game. I was watching it live, and when it happened, and I instantly kind of thought it was a pretty bad injury, just with the history that he has with his knees and just kind of the way he reacted to it and how much pain you could tell he was in. I thought it was going to be a bad injury. Then, the reports came out that it was a meniscus injury sometime later, and that they did not have a timetable for his return. So that was kind of concerning in my opinion. Obviously, this was 2 months ago, and I heard meniscus, and I instantly thought that's a season-ending injury. Then, after that happened and the timetable was unclear, then a lot of the pundits, Kendrick Perkins and people like that came out and started to kind of throw out the idea that they should shut him down for the rest of the season, regardless of whether or not he was able to make a comeback and come back healthy. I personally did not necessarily agree with those, because I know that these title windows are just they're so short and finicky, and I'm of the mindset that anytime you have a chance that you think you have a championship team, you should go all in for it while you have a shot. So my concern more came from the fact that I did not think that he was going to be able to get back healthy, just based on what people were saying about the injury and how long it takes to recover and things like that. But it looks like I was wrong completely. I mean, I guess over the last few weeks there have been, reports that he could return in April and before the playoffs and in time for the playoffs were kind of the whatever other phrases that were thrown out over the last few weeks. So I kind of slowly opened my mind to the idea that he could come back, and well, he did just that. Joel Embiid he made his much anticipated return in Tuesday's win over the Thunder, and I have to say he looked a lot better than I thought he would. When it was announced that he would play shortly before the game, I kind of stopped what I was doing and to watch the game because I wanted to see what he looked like. And obviously I'm not a doctor or anything, don't know anything about knees or anything like that to tell whether someone is healthy on the floor or not. But I was just kind of looking to see if it was Joel Embiid out there, if it was a partial version of him. And in my opinion, he looked really, really good. I don't want to overreact because obviously it's just one game coming off an injury, but I really thought he looked a lot like himself out there. So just a quick rundown of his stats for the games. He had 24 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. He did have 6 turnovers, but I don't think that's necessarily an injury. The injury had a factor with that. That's probably more of a fatigue thing and just a being rusty thing. And he did that in 29 minutes, almost played 30 minutes that night. So he didn't really do anything special, really, but in terms of stats and just kind of, even during the game, he didn't do anything that was just spectacular like he usually does. But considering that he hasn't played basketball in 2 months, that is not a bad stat line at all, not a bad performance. But for me, at least, I was not really expecting him to have a dominant performance simply because there is such thing as rust when it comes to having to take that much time off of basketball. I mean, I can personally attest to it. Taking time off of a video game, taking time off of anything, when you come back, you're a lot rustier than you were before. I can in college this semester I haven't had to write with a pencil or a pen just about all semester because I've been doing everything on my computer and everything's online. And the other day we did something in class where I had to write with a pencil, and I think it was like a simple writing my name or signing my name on something, and that pencil felt foreign to me. It felt like I had never used a pencil in my life, but I've been doing it for 18 years. So that just something like that is goes to show that it don't matter what it is, if you have to take that much time off of it, it's very possible that you can get rusty. So this showed with him, and I could see the rust out there. However, I could even sense that rust kind of was going away as the game continued to go by, and he quickly started to get his feel back and just kind of felt more comfortable on the floor. But the biggest thing that I saw from him was just that he was moving really well laterally and was jumping pretty well, and just kind of overall explosiveness. There were a couple of plays that I wish I could show on here where he was up in the pick and roll because there was a shooter on the as the ball handler, so he had to come all the way up to the point of the screen, and the drop off pass was made to the roller, and he was able to turn and sprint and recover, slide and recover to contest the shot at the rim, and that was pretty impressive to me because, I mean, that's who Embiid is. He's kind of reckless. Even with his size, he is kind of reckless and just kind of does whatever he wants to on the floor and just jumping and running and sprinting and diving, just all that kind of stuff. And then there were also a few moments of him having to get down in a stance and guard on the perimeter in a face-up situation. And in one of those instances, actually, it was late in the game. I think he stole it from Chet, just ripped the ball from him, went and took it on a fast break. So, offensively, he made plays, scoring and playmaking, and defensively he was trying to be all over the place like he usually is. But most importantly to me, he was trusting his knee, and it did not look to me like he was favoring it in or even having to think about it. Sometimes when you come back from an injury, even something as simple as a finger injury or ankle injury or something, you think about it. Your mind is kind of thinking about it, so you may catch the ball differently or run differently, land a little different. I didn't see any of that at him. So the only real negative I saw was, and I don't even think it's really a negative because, like I said, he has been hurt for 2 months, and he did have some moments where you could tell he was laboring up the floor and completely out of shape. But to me, I'm not worried about that at all because I think there's enough time left in the season for him to get his win back. So I could not be more excited about the fact that he was able to return in time for them to attempt to make a run, at least. Just as a basketball fan, as an NBA fan, it is great because it adds another storyline and another star to the already stacked playoffs, and it adds another threat to Boston and especially the rest of the Eastern Conference. So Embiid's return might be the biggest game changer in the Eastern Conference playoffs this season. Not only did he look healthy in his return, but this injury might have been a blessing in disguise because he basically had 2 months to rest. So for the first time in his career, he will be fresh heading into the playoffs. He has 5 games left to get his win back and build some chemistry with some of the new additions to the team. And if that happens and he is able to get near the level he was playing at to start the season, the Eastern Conference is in trouble. And I mean the entire Eastern Conference, top to bottom. So I'm definitely going to have to keep a close eye on him for these last few games to just kind of see if he shows any signs of the injury bothering him or if he shows any signs of him being fully back. So I'm looking for both things. And I'll probably honestly try to watch the all five of their last 5 games to get a better grasp on things and see what he's looking like. But I think they have a great opportunity in front of them. Obviously, the Julius Randle news that I'm about to talk about in a second, to me, that knocks the Knicks down a notch. The Bucks can't seem to find any sort of consistency. The Cavs have had some injuries with Donovan Mitchell and cannot seem to find a groove either. So it is wide open outside of Boston, in my opinion. And really the jockeying for who's the second best team in the conference is it's like I said, it's wide open and it's really anybody's chance to go get it. So moving on to the news that came out earlier today, it got announced that Julius Randle will undergo season-ending surgery on his shoulder. And to me, behind Embiid making his return, this is the biggest injury news in the league. I thought when healthy, the Knicks were really formidable and could potentially beat anybody in the East outside of Boston. And I even thought they could challenge them and potentially beat them in a 7-game series. But I wasn't really sure if they had enough firepower or would have enough firepower. But everyone else, I could definitely see them beating, or could have. And without Randle, they definitely have been knocked down a few notches, in my opinion, just in the ladder of power ranking, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Julius Randle was averaging 24, 9, and 5 for them and was a go-to second option for them, and they are definitely feeling his absence. They're having to put, so much on Jalen Brunson's shoulders, and teams know this, so they are doing everything they can to make it tough on him, and because they know that there's not a surefire second go-to option that they can run the offense through. So again, obviously this is a huge blow for the Knicks, and watching Stephen A. earlier was funny. I wish they had mentioned that they were going to call Spike Lee and get him on First Take to see what his reaction was, but Stephen A.'s reaction was pretty funny. He just, even though I don't really think he's as big of a fan of the Knicks as he says, it was just funny seeing him react, especially the way he treats the Cowboy fans. So, like I said, this really hurts their chances of making a deep run in these playoffs. However, as important as Julius Randle is to the Knicks, OG Anunoby is more important. They were 15-2 when OG played and had the best defense in the league by far. Their offense was also significantly better, and they were just overall one of the best teams in the league. So while the Randle injury really hurts their chances, getting OG back would be huge and would increase their chances of making a run in the Eastern Conference, where there are tons and tons of questions and concerns, and each team has something that they're battling with that makes them vulnerable to getting beat in the playoffs. So, like I said, this really hurts, and I hate to see it happen because I hate star players getting injured, especially right before the playoffs start. And he's been battling with that injury for the whole season, so I'm not sure why he waited until now to decide he's getting surgery. It just might have been something that I think somebody said that he was going to have to get surgery regardless, and it was just a debate of whether to go ahead and do it now and not miss any of next season, or to try to get back in time to play for this season and get it in the off season and miss the start of next season. So I'm not sure what led into that decision, but obviously he's getting it now and is going to miss the rest of the season. So, like I said, it really does hurt, and I hate to see it, but unfortunately that's just the way things happen. But if they can get OG back, who it sounds like there's a good chance they will be able to get him back before the playoffs, I think they have a chance to make some noise in the playoffs. So moving on to the other big news as far as people missing seasons and things like that. Another team that has been ravaged with injuries as of late is the Sacramento Kings. Kevin Huerter will miss the remainder of the season with a shoulder surgery, and Malik Monk will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a knee injury. So more than likely the rest of the season, unless D Fox and Sabonis just kind of carry them into a deep playoff run. But honestly, I don't even think they will be able to make it out of the play-in and into the playoffs without those two players. these injuries have not been getting talked about a lot in the media because obviously it's Sacramento and they're a small market team, so they're just not going to get a lot of coverage. But also I think it has something to do with the fact that people don't really view them as a legit contender, and neither did I, honestly. But these two injuries are just as tragic for their chances as Julius Randle is for the Knicks, as whoever else that you want to talk about. So in this West, though, even though I don't view them as contenders, if you just look at the Western Conference, we can point to every team outside of Denver and find some fatal flaw that could be exposed, which means that the Kings would, although they have flaws, the Kings would have had a chance to make a deep run, at least in my opinion. I just think every team has something that they're lacking. Outside of Denver, there's not really another great team. So, if I can talk myself into the Lakers making a run, the Warriors making a run, the Suns making a deep run, teams like that, if I could talk myself into that, which I have done over and over again in my head and even on here, then I think I could also talk myself into thinking that the Kings could go deep in the playoffs. But that was before these injuries, and as they were still battling for 4 through whatever seed they were battling for, I could talk myself into that. But now that these injuries happen, I just can't see it. I don't think they will even make it to the playoffs. However, they, in a one-game scenario that is the play-in game, they are still very dangerous because they'll be in a situation where they're playing with nothing to lose against a team like the Lakers or a team like the Warriors that have tons and tons of pressure on them. So that's going to be really scary for those two teams to have to go potentially into Sacramento and play a game like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Outside of that, I cannot, like I said, I cannot talk myself into them doing anything beyond that. And if it does come to fruition that they miss the playoffs, my mind kind of, and this is just kind of the way my mind works, it just kind of obviously automatically shifts to the offseason and how do they handle it, because to me they're in a situation where they had a good season last year and were the 3 seed, got upset by the Warriors, you could call it an upset technically, and kind of took the lead by storm for that season. And so they instead of making a big move and trying to go get somebody in free agency, they just kind of stayed put, gave Harrison Barnes some money instead of replacing him. Then they kind of took a step back this year. Not even kind of. They took a step back this year and went backwards by pretty large margin. So I can't see how you go into another season running it back. When it's not like you had De'Aaron Fox miss an entire season or something like that, where you can say that season don't count or whatever. This was late in the season. It wasn't looking like you were going to do anything anyway. So I don't see how you run that back and without making some significant changes, because the West is not getting any easier next year. You got the Grizzlies that are coming back. You got Houston that is looking a lot better. San Antonio retool. The Jazz might do something. I mean, it's not going to get any easier in terms of teams that are trying to fight for a playoff spot. So as far as what those changes are, I have no clue what they are at this moment. I don't even want to think about it, but I'm sure I'll be discussing them at some further point in the summer. But for now, I think their season is over. So lastly, before that was the big 3 injury news, I think, in my opinion, but there also is just kind of some smaller, just kind of nagging injuries and some stuff going on with some players across the league, players on playoff teams that I think could have an impact on how the rest of this season plays out. So a big one that I just seen them talking about on NBA Today was that SGA is nursing an injury where he has missed 4 of the last 5 games, and then in the last 6 games he's played, he's only averaging like 21 points, and his shooting splits are way down. So there's something going on there. I'm not sure what it is or if it's anything serious, or they're probably just trying to play it safe right now and give him as much rest as possible and time to rehab and things like that. I don't know exactly how, if it could turn into anything serious or exactly what's going on there, because a lot of times they're kind of tight-lipped with this stuff. But if they want to do anything, I mean, he's got to be 100% healthy, and he's probably got to play beyond what he's doing in this regular season. 31 points might not even be enough. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one and see how he's responding to this rest that they've given him. Like I said, I think he's missed 4 of their last 5 games or whatever, and they're on a road trip right now. So just played a tough game in Philly and a tough game in Boston that he rested for. So, like I said, I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Then in the East, you got Donovan Mitchell, who is obviously he had the situation where he broke his nose, and he also has had something where his knee's been bothering him, and that's the kind of one that I'm worried about. I'm not so worried about the nose, but after last night's game against the Suns, he came out and talked about how the knee is bothering him and how he's limited and not able to do some things that he wants to do because of that knee injury. And to me, that's pretty concerning because they are so reliant on him, and obviously his numbers have went way down after the All-Star break and since this injury has kind of happened. So, but I mean, before that, they were one of the best teams in the league. They went on that crazy stretch where they were like 19-1 over 20 games or something like that, where they had that big winning streak and were just beating everybody across the league. That was a pretty impressive stretch, and I thought they were going to keep that up for the rest of the season, but they've been kind of ravaged with injuries, and everybody's kind of at some point on that team. It feels like everybody on that team has missed some games with injuries, but this kind of nagging knee injury that seems to be bothering Donovan Mitchell is another thing that's worrying me and could hurt their chances of doing anything in this playoffs. But if they can get healthy, fully healthy, everybody on the team can get healthy, they are just as dangerous as anybody else in the East. Then, moving out west to the Clippers, they've got two things going on. Kawhi has missed the last 2 games with his knee, and it's the same knee that he's messed up the last few seasons. That's always concerning. Even though, I mean, you want to talk about being tight-lipped, the Clippers are always tight-lipped when it comes to Kawhi's injuries. So, well, I guess any team that Kawhi's on is tight-lipped with it. So, I'm not sure what's going on there. But anytime you start talking about Kawhi's knees, I get nervous, especially when it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And this late in the season where it's like, I mean, on one hand, they could be just giving him some rest, I guess. And then on the other hand, it's like, ugh, like, shouldn't he be trying to play? I mean, they are battling for potentially getting home court in that first round. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Again, which none of these injuries I'm going to talk about, I'm not real sure what's going on because it's just kind of, they're not giving a lot of details and they're just missing games and they're labeling it as that. So all these could just be rest and just kind of a very, very minor injury that they're using as the excuse to get them rest. And then also on the Clippers, Harden, if y'all remember, Harden missed a couple games with a shoulder injury a few weeks ago. And since then, he has just been, I don't remember what it was, but it's a long stretch that he's been without scoring 20 points, and his numbers are just way down. He's still getting a bunch of assists, but his shooting splits, his attempts per game are way down. And so there's definitely something weird going on. I think it was a shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken. So there's definitely something weird going on there, and it could be something that's more serious than they're letting on and then that he's letting on that's causing him to feel like he can't shoot the ball, which, again, there's two sides to this because Harden has had plenty of stretches in his career where he just goes in that mode where he's just not aggressive, not shooting the ball. Most of the time it comes in big moments, then that's why he's got that reputation. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure what's going on there. But those two injuries, if those two guys are hurt, then I have no confidence in the Clippers. But if they come back healthy, then like I said, I mean, even though they're having a horrible stretch right now, and they're playing most of those games, it's still like I have some faith in them, just like I do with the Lakers, Warriors, Suns, just because of the star power. And the playoffs, at the end of the day, is about star power and stars showing up and willing people to victory. So I'm gonna keep an eye there too. Then there's going back out east. There's Dame, who has missed the last couple of games with a groin injury, and the Bucks just as a whole have not been good as of late. I mean, it looked like they were turning things around after the All-Star break, and then they've just been bad of late. They lost to the Wizards. They lost to the Grizzlies for the second time. It's like it's just there's something going on there. You got Doc coming out again, making all kind. I'm not saying he's making excuses, but he's talking about we lack professionalism. Everybody seems to be happy except for me after losses, and this goes all the way down from players to travel staff and just like there's something weird going on in that organization. I'm not real sure what it is, and there has been really since they fired Budenholzer. So hopefully Dame can get back healthy, and even if he is, I'm not real confident in the Bucks right now. I mean, you look at them on paper, it's like, yeah, you've got probably arguably the best big three in the league, but man, they just can't seem to show any signs of having any form of consistency this year. And so I don't know how things are going to shape out with them. Then you've got Karl-Anthony Towns. There's rumors starting to heat up that he could return before the playoffs. He don't have long. I mean, he has about 2 weeks, I guess, before the playoffs start, and they need him back. They've been kind of treading water without him, and I'm not the biggest Cat fan, but I do know that they need him back come playoff time if they think they can make it to the finals and beat Denver, or even they need him back more for, let's say, the Lakers. They match up with the Lakers, and they match up with Dallas or somebody like that out of the play-in spot. That's, to me, those are the series they need him more for than especially. But they also, I mean, obviously you need him for the entire playoff run, but like a series against the Lakers worries me, and they need as much size as they can get. So I would like to see him return. The Pelicans, obviously Zion had something. First of all, he got his knee bumped, and it looked like, there goes Zion again. And then he came back into the game and then left the game again with a finger injury. But fingers sometimes, he's not really a shooter and things like that, so I'm not really worried about the finger injury. But more importantly on their team, it sounds like Brandon Ingram's coming back from his injury, which obviously they need Ingram if they want to do anything in the playoffs. So, like I said, there's a lot of injuries going around the league, and just like a lot of minor things. And as much as we hate injuries as fans, they are inevitable and will ultimately affect the outcome of the season in one way or another. It felt like we had a pretty clean season, injury-free season as far as major players being hurt, but then they kind of all started happening at once with Embiid and Cat and Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle, Malik Monk. So I hope all the ones that are nearing a return are able to get back for the playoffs and be somewhat healthy. I hope all the ones that are nursing some injuries that I just talked about, I hope they can kind of minimize those, because I just want to see these teams and players battling where everybody's at full strength and there's no excuses. Like I said, I know it's inevitable, but that does not necessarily mean that it's not frustrating when it does happen. And I also want to be clear that I'm doing an injury episode. I want to be clear that I'm not in that putting asterisks on titles camp due to injuries. I think that's extremely unfair and dumb to the ones people do that to, because every championship in history could have an asterisk put on it. But for some reason, people only pick and choose when they want to do that, when it's LeBron and Steph and people like that. But I better stop myself before I go on a rant about people trying to discredit championships, because I will be doing it all day, and this episode will be 2 hours long of me ranting about people trying to discredit championships. So just to wrap up and kind of recap real fast, Embiid returning is huge for the Sixers, and I think they are right in the mix of getting to the conference finals and potentially even the finals. As far as Julius Randle's injury goes, I think it hurts, obviously, but I think if they could get OG back, they will still be okay. I think the Kings season is pretty much over with Huerter and Malik Monk being out. And lastly, I hope all these stars with major injuries can avoid them becoming anything major. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you made it this far, first of all, thank you so much. But while you're here, it would be greatly appreciated if you took a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future episodes. Also, hit the like button while you're down there. But with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Hoopla. I've been your host, Ethan Jackson. Until next time.